I want to bring in Mark.
Oh, hello.
Before you're back in the bureau, right now you are among the protesters.
This is Fake Zappa coming to you from North Texas this time. I just arrived last week, and I have some sad news. It has come to my attention whether I am technically the president of North America or not. There are proceedings to get me impeached, and I am outraged. And I decided to do this live and to talk about all the things that have tried to get me out of a place of power, and how folks give me a lot of attention trying to keep me quiet. And I will give a lot of background, and I will also talk about how some similarities of being a mental health activist and a fake president, who I've been doing this fake Zappa for president thing back as far as 2019. It wasn't a very serious project until the more I spent time and money on it. It was one of the best marketing scams I've ever had in order to catch and hold the attention of not only the American public, but also getting some attention from folks overseas. Ironically, I had gotten a podcast interview from a young man from Australia because I decided to advertise it there, because the rest of the world was watching this campaign and thinking, you know, we're in a global pandemic. People need food, they need jobs, and we're spending $1 billion to keep this guy in the White House who most people hate, and maybe $500 million or something to get somebody else to replace him. And the whole thing's playing out like a damn American Idol reality show. So if you're not in America, chances are you will enjoy this live stream. Sponsored by Fisherman's Friends, because I have a frog in my throat. Ribbit. And nothing freaks people more these days than somebody walking around coughing with allergies. And right now the temperature's dropping below freezing here again, and that's no fun. My plans are, and I'm not so sure, but I thought it would be really funny to follow. And I think it would be funny to call Mr. Trump President Trump. There are people that still call him President Trump, and there are people that will probably use that term for the rest of their life, because he has become a symbol of, for a lot of people, especially in the far right wing, and even people in the left wing, even independents, Democrats, folks that identify as liberals, have pledged their allegiance to what they call President Trump. And I think it's really funny that, you know, if we're to impeach a U.S. president, and at the same time not even acknowledge that he still is president, it is kind of ironic that us as tree-hugging, granola-crunching liberals are trying to impeach a guy who doesn't even have that job anymore, in a way that almost makes me wonder, are we acknowledging that he still is in a place of power in this country that needs to be dethroned? Or are we still so hurt about what happened 5 weeks ago that we need him to pay for all the things that he either did or apparently did? Because when we're dealing with somebody who has that much of a pathological obsession with gaining and maintaining as much power and influence as he possibly can, we're going to end up with somebody who wants us to enable his three-ring circus, his reality show that is still going on, whether he's in Washington, D.C., or whether he's sitting by palm trees in Florida. So, with that going on, I thought, man, there is a lot that is trying to take away my power, and at the same time, it's giving me attention. When folks work hard to make efforts to make me not heard, they're still giving me attention. And I hate to do these things, but as a disability activist, I find it funny that the more that I try to get a job, and I'm not just trying to get an entry-level job, I'm not trying to get my factory and warehouse jobs that I had 15 years ago that were continually traumatizing a person who should not be in those environments. And if I were to go into vocational rehab, or if I was going to go into some type of nonprofit or church program, those are the kinds of things that they would put me in, not realizing the fact that their efforts and their so-called help is entirely useless, considering the fact that I could fill out a job application to get a night shift at a mom and pop store at a gas station, or I could fill out an application to work at a factory in a warehouse or a temp agency with this big gap in my resume, getting minimum wage and re-traumatizing myself, and also denying the fact that I have more to contribute to the world than pushing a cash register button. Now, I've done that, and I've had to at times, and there might not necessarily be anything wrong with that. It's just that somebody who has a skilled background. I find it ironic that in the last 2 or 3 months, I have stayed at 2 places that have an acoustic piano on the property. I had bought some piano tuning tools because the ones that I had originally when I started learning how to tune pianos almost 20 years ago had gotten destroyed. I have yet to use them because I wanted to maybe do a barter or trade and say, hey, if I tune your piano, could you give me a break on this or whatever? And then I decided, no, I'm just going to do it because I want to play their piano. Their piano's out of tune. I thought I would do a good deed and contribute and give because I have skills, I have experience, and I'm tired of just getting money from the government in order to do nothing and shut up and disappear. Now, I find it interesting that even giving and contributing for free is something that is another example of how there is so much going on with powerful people, even places that I'm spending money to renting out a spot to put my travel trailer, won't even allow me to give of my time and my services. And that makes me like, wow, this is really getting weird. And the more I do this, the more it's a fight in order for me to try to get and hold the attention of people. And this is what it's about these days. Social media is such a mad grab of attention. And one of the most powerful people, and I'm not talking about financial power because there are multi-billionaires that are way richer than presidents. However, they're not in the news very much. They're not going out and staging these huge, elaborate grabs for attention. And it's gotten to the point when people were hurt and killed. And ironically, and this is something I wrote about in March of 2016, is that Donald Trump, when he started running for president, had gotten support from born-again Christians. And I thought, oh shit, boy, once he has their attention, he's got an incredible devout following, not necessarily the moral majority, because they're not a majority. It's just they take up a lot of space. They take up a lot of room as far as their voice. They've got, a lot of channels of Christian television. They make it look like they're bigger than they are. Well, I mean, there are in every town and every city you go to around the country, you're going to find born-again Bible-believing Christians unless there's a population of 2 somewhere. Now, once he got to infiltrate that community as somebody who has little to no background as a man of faith, I thought, well, if he can get and hold their attention, he can get anybody. And I have seen everybody from vegetarians to transgendered people to San Francisco liberals who have done this hashtag walk away thing, where they walk away from the Democrat, progressive, left-wing, liberal stuff. And that's not a problem. I'm trying to walk away from my left-wing community for the simple fact that I just didn't feel like I was really allowed to be an equal participating member of the Not My President Club. But walking away from that doesn't necessarily mean I start serving a political cult leader like Mr. Trump. But as a social experiment, I decided to make some gestures every now and again and change the way I talk and change the way I dress at times in order to get people to think that maybe I was some kind of Trumpy. I call it my fake Trumpy. And I had this red hat that I designed that says hug a Trumpy. I never lied to anybody. I never came up to one of my fellow progressives and said, I'm a Trump supporter. I support him. No, all I had to do was to say one thing like, oh, President Trump, I sure like his hairdo, or something. And they're just freaking out. And especially my Facebook stuff. About every year or so, I will do something that is obviously not a pro-Trump post. However, can very, if somebody doesn't look deep into it, like if I misspell the word Trump and just say Tump and define the word Tump, that I will lose Facebook friends and I will get them to yell in capital letters and freak out and harass me just because I am making a joke that makes people think that I'm some kind of Trumpy. So, anyways, what we are witnessing right now, in my unprofessional opinion, is part of Trump's ongoing reality show that is enabling his addiction and obsession with gaining as much power and influence as he possibly can. And, of course, when somebody suffers, and I like to say this, when somebody like Mr. Trump suffers with this kind of pathology, and you got to understand how this guy was raised. He was raised with, that is your number one thing. I mean, it's like being raised by Ferengis. I'm halfway through Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And they really go in depth about the lifestyle and culture of the Ferengi nation. And if you don't know, those are the guys with the big ears like this. And they have, I think it's 285, what they call the rules of acquisition. And their entire lives since birth, if they are a male, is to acquire as much as they possibly can. And and they keep their women at home naked. They're not allowed to wear clothes. And if a woman wears clothes and if she profits from anything, then they penalize her and fine her and put her in jail and all this kind of stuff. And so I'm thinking, oh my God, imagine being raised with Ferengi parents to where every single thing that you do and every single thing that you think about and that you're motivated has to do with acquiring as much as you possibly can, no matter what. So just imagine as little teeny Trump Jr. as a crying baby and constantly having this thing, this value, this priority put on him. And of course, I'm sure there was a lot of talk among, like it is with successful people, when people are talking about success and talking about, stuff like success gurus talk about. They're like, oh, we're here to give. It's all about integrity and it's about this and that. And it's like, okay, but what they're really doing is they are obsessed with getting as much power, not necessarily money, because when you get power, money comes. I know what it's like to have money and no power. And I've also had times in my life where I've had positions of influence where I was recognized and even kind of respected as being a professional musician, as being an educator, who didn't even have the credentials, who didn't even have the education to be doing the work that I was doing. I had the recognition. I didn't even have the the money to well, I just barely ate. In fact, there were sometimes I had to believe for people to leave groceries on my doorstep. However, I would do anything. I would pay any kind of money to get that kind of recognition that I had, to walk into a music store and to have the people there recognize me as, oh, we have your students here. They talk about you and all this kind of stuff. And now it's really funny having no power and having to approach powerful people and depend on powerful people in order for me to get the career that I feel like I'm skilled and qualified to do. I would like to get off of Social Security disability, and I've noticed that that is a huge, well, I no longer believe in the word stigma. I like to call it bigotry. Um, but then again, we only like, especially those of us that are progressives, we only like to use the word bigotry in the context of the American right wing. And so it is really, as sad as it is funny, to get a constant stream of bigotry for the last 15 years of my life as a result of being traumatized by those on the right wing. And me being somebody who hates bullying, who's been a victim of one bullying type situation to another for most of my life. I have experienced it from both perspectives of the political and religious chasm that we call our bipartisan system equally, because both of them want to overthrow this country. And so what we're getting now is progressives like me, at least when it comes to the Oval Office, we're like, yes, we're in power again. Well, that's not enough for us. We want to make the other side suffer. Well, haven't we done that enough with the news? And with all this anti-Trumpster propaganda, with all the anti-masker propaganda, and showing for almost an entire year of American white, old and young hillbillies wearing camouflage and walking around in public places without wearing their COVID mask and shaming them on TV. Not only that, it started as far as back in April. You will see that U.S. News and World Report and different websites like that will show just cartoon strips in magazines demonizing people that look like and resemble folks that are on the American right wing. And then we want to blame them for what we call an insurrection when we've been taunting them for over 4 years. And not only that, during the pandemic, we have decided to humiliate folks just because we think that they're not following our health code. Now, the thing about this health code is that I personally believe that it's a form of responsibility to be wearing one of those masks in indoor places and even some outdoor places. I'm not obsessed about it, and I don't want to be a Nazi about it, even though I was at a restaurant that served tacos last weekend with apparently church people that work there, because I mean, who else would have a donation bucket right there by the cash register that says donate to Christian Ministry, Hope, Care, Internet, whatever ministry, put a coin in for a church group? Well, that's just part of Texas. There really is no separation of not only church and state, but church and businesses. And not only that, though, I've seen so many Trumpster businesses. You just drive down, even in cities, and especially in the burbs, you'll see a place that sells and puts on used tires or whatever, and they've got a big Trump 2020 flag. Well, here it is. It's February, and I'm still seeing Trumpster flags, just as I predicted. And having predicted Mr. Trump's victory in 2016 and why, and what he would do after that. What is left for somebody who is obsessed with that much power? We're talking about a financial success. We're talking about success as a celebrity, and as we know, You're Fired with, what is that, The Apprentice or something like that. So he was a celebrity. And then political power, of course, would be the next thing on his agenda. What's the next thing to do after that is, of course, matters of faith. And he has become a symbol of belief. People believe that he is still the president, which is something that I decided with my fake presidential campaign, that I would not only get myself to believe that I was some type of president, not of the United States of America, but of all North America. And the only difference between me and him is that I don't have millions of people that believe that fake Zappa is their president. I might have a couple of fans out there that jokingly pledge their allegiance to me because it is so weird to have a political leader that is placed there just as a matter of faith for some people. In fact, it is such a matter of faith that we have seen it demonstrated that there are folks that were willing to risk their well-being and even risk their lives in order to pledge their allegiance to this guy who suffers with this obsession with gaining. He has managed to win the hearts and minds of millions of people and still has. Now, I have traveled to about 20 states during this election, during the pandemic, and I have talked to a lot of people on the left and the right. And I have talked to a lot of people who give me the impression that they can identify with my views as far as looking at both sides and saying they're crazy. And then I find out that when I make certain statements, there is, and I'm talking about every single, I can't think of one person who doesn't have a fueled, passionate anger, aversion, animosity, and hostility towards somebody on the opposite side of their views. Now, a little background about me. Why am I so sympathetic to these people who have traumatized me and who have made my life so difficult that I've never had my life recovered? This happened 15 years ago. I was victimized in an organization that was doing anti-gay forms of residential and outpatient, or I don't know if you call it outpatient, correspondence, things in the form of some kind of pseudo mental health works. This is stuff that we call conversion therapy, trying to get gay people into straight people. And of course, most of us with any common sense, or if we have any access to mainstream media, mental health resources, know that that is a very, very harmful thing. You might as well just counsel people to kill themselves. So having endured 5 years of that, including a 7-month residential program, 5 months of follow-up stuff, 1 whole year being involved with these folks in northern central Kentucky, having sold my music business and spent the next 8 years fading out of an ideology that was based on the Bible, trying to come to terms with my gay stuff and trying to sort out what type of liberal views that I wanted to readapt in my life, because I was in a very unsafe environment growing up amongst hyper educated, left wing, urban, progressive, left coast people. And I had a paradigm shift at age 20 when I left Oregon, and I became one of those born again Bible believing persons and adopted their worldview, which the baggage included the Republican Party and most of their views. And I found that there really wasn't a difference between the amount of harm and the amount of good that these people did. Now, having been in Texas for about 3 or 4 months, I will see this place because it really is, there is definitely an attitude of greed and power in the state of Texas that is unusual for this part of the country, because I was doing this sort of Tornado Alley corridor. Well, it was mostly North and South Dakota, and then I went down through the Midwest to Mississippi, Louisiana, and then ended up in Texas for several months. And out of all these places, I see a lot of resemblance to the kind of greed and addiction to power that I see all over the state of California. And the state of California, when it comes to influence, is one of the, if not the epicenter, besides maybe New York City and a couple other places around the world. But when it comes to Hollywood and television, there is more influence and more power over the will of not only the American people, but the whole world that comes out of the Los Angeles area. And I find that place really fascinating. What a lot of times we don't realize is that a state like Texas, because of its background with oil and technology and a whole bunch of, there's also a whole bunch of entertainment stuff here. And that's why I came to San Antonio, Austin, and Dallas, and have kind of stayed around Central and North Texas here for the last couple months, is because there's been some open doors when it comes to the entertainment industry. And things have been really dry, although yesterday I did have a little bit of changes of luck. One of those things, I finally got my fucking tags from Oregon. Because of the COVID excuse, it takes them now several weeks to get your registration tags. And so what I find interesting about Texans is this is a heavily urbanized state when it comes to the general population of living in massive cities like Houston and stuff. Now, cities that they're eternally fixing the freeways. And I know this because going through Waco, I had my first blowout this month here on February 1st. Kaboom, my tire went kaput. And it could have done a lot more harm than it did. So I am counting my blessing here, no matter what clusterfuck has gone on with other repairs that I'm in dispute about. Here's what I've noticed when I've just observed the cultural habits of Texans. It reminds me of my feelings that I've had towards American conservatives. Is they love big and they hate big. They are front stabbers and not backstabbers. You won't find American conservatives using a lot of passive aggressive tactics like you would folks that are influenced by education, like my upbringing and my personal current ideology of worshiping education. What you'll see is an emphasis on faith and family and brutal honesty. So what you'll find is you'll find people who are willing to get their hands dirty when it comes to helping the homeless. You'll find people that'll stand up for themselves when it comes to their faith and their beliefs. And they're not so freaked out of a lot of things, of course, unless You say anything that makes them feel like you're some kind of communist. And then they freak out. On the other hand, though, you definitely have your left-wing people here. Austin, Texas is so much like Portland. Now, I really didn't stop and hang out in Austin. I just went right through it. So far, the people I've met from Austin and the things that I've heard and the things that come out of there and the types of things that go on, like South by Southwest, and me say, wouldn't it be funny to try to talk to these people and to see if they actually acknowledge my existence? And just the general feeling of this is a very populated area, and there is a lot of urban conservatives in Texas and here in the burbs. I'm out, and you definitely have the paranoid guys with shotguns. I was taking a walk with somebody just on the grass next to a highway and a business, and there was a guy sitting there, and he runs out of his office and starts yelling at us saying this is private property. Like, yeah, but there's no sidewalk. And then he kept saying this is private property, this is private property. It's like, oh my god. Do they even realize there's such things as Google reviews, even if somebody's not doing business with them? Apparently not, because we have that much power and an obsession with power that is passed on generation after generation, like folks that grew up in Southern California. They just do anything to get attention. I know I've been with a lot of these people that have grown up there, and that's your goal, is you have to get people to look at you and to continue to look at you and to listen to you, no matter if you're pretty or ugly, you have something to contribute or not. And I've noticed this in places that have a background. For instance, California, it's obvious. It's media and it's gold. And here in Texas, it's obvious. It's oil, and it's being on the Gulf Coast. You've got everything from palm trees. You've got racial tension with being a border state. You've got a clusterfuck that is creating an environment for a lot of issues that people that grew up here that are probably unaware of how they deal with being in a mentality where your priorities are all messed up. So I'm saying that just to say that this is my impression of the American right wing. I've always been fascinated at the American right wing. I grew up watching the Jim and Tammy Baker fiasco that went on during the 80s. And then earlier was the Oral Roberts fiasco. And we loved to roast born-again Bible-believing Christians, and we were always amazed at how apparently greedy they were and how open they were about what they were willing to do for money, and when they were caught and how they reacted to that whole thing. And of course, we loved to roast these people when I was growing up, when we were eating dinner and we'd be watching TV and all this stuff, and then Ollie North, and then, of course, the Reagans and the Bushes and all this kind of stuff. So it was really ironic for me to go to the state of Alaska and find that there were a lot of conservatives there that I liked. And one of the things I liked is they were upfront about their ways of communicating. And they were very warm when it comes to their impressions of the family and things like that. Family. I mean, I hear that. We're family friendly. And it's like, oh, I hate that. At the same time, I'm like, they're really good to people who are in their inner circle. And they're very, very dedicated. And they can demonstrate a lot of compassion, although kind of selective. And what I've noticed with the diversity and affirming type people is they're not quite as strong at really demonstrating compassion, even though their circle is a little more open towards people with disadvantages. It's just, I have realized a sad reality about the American left wing and how they pick and choose the folks that they consider underprivileged. And it's typically folks that already are very recognized or very apparent in their disadvantages, or folks that they can own, like a mascot. And I don't fit either one of those characteristics. So, as far as my impeachment, what is going to happen to me as somebody who is not even technically a president? And I got these letters here because it was really funny here. There was notification of planned action being disabled. Oh, Brian Webb said, sorry, Zappa, I think you need to be impeached. I am guilty. Yes, I am, because look, the Department of Human Services and Aging and People with Disabilities in the beloved blue state of Oregon has given me a notification of planned action because I need to spend a certain amount of time in the state of Oregon, whether I tell them or not, whether they say it's okay or not. If they get returned mail somewhere, then they start freaking out. And the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. But then again, their glasses are fogged up because they're wearing their COVID masks all day. And most of them are working from home. And most of them have lost their jobs anyways. So you really can't expect local governments to really do very much these days. Even when it comes to getting my tags. So anyways, Brian Webb, and thank you. You're one of my biggest scandalous people in my fake career as a fake president of North America. So, damn right, being unemployed can lead to huge social benefits. People who are unemployed are the source of the arts and perform caring functions for family more than employed people. Thanks. And then I have a retracted message as well. And then, oh, that's right, you're watching from Ireland. If I remember, Mr. Brian Webb is very much, in fact, I think you have about as much or even more of an aversion towards the left-wing mentalities in Western culture as I do. It's just that I identify with most of the views of left-wing Western culture. I call myself a reluctant liberal. What I find interesting from the right wing about being disabled is there's a lot of denial about the fact, and I have documented evidence for almost 5 years of being denied vocational support from government, nonprofit, and businesses and communities and things like that I've gone to, where you go to somebody's websites and they show testimonies and then pictures of people who had been empowered and enabled when they were living on support and doing nothing, and they were given accommodations in order to get their lives back. And I call these organizations and I tell them what my disability is. And of course, they don't know what to do with it. And then I tell them what my vocation is, and they really don't know what to do with it. Especially the fact that my particular vocation, my particular skill set requires for me, if I'm going to actually make a living and be successful, requires for demands that I have to capture and maintain a certain amount of influence and attention from people, because that's how artists make a living. That is my currency. My currency is gaining and maintaining attention, which is what's going on in politics and religion and a lot of other things. And so that is what's interesting, that when I go to an organization that claims to empower people to get back or even to fulfill their dreams that might be unemployable technically, or that might need some types of accommodations, first off, it's very easy just to buy somebody some kind of mobility thing and say, job done, okay, next. Or even putting a mentally ill person in a situation where they found some kind of job they can do. For instance, my first exposure to vocational rehab stuff when I was not even on disability at that point was I called around and I was asked to go to, I think it was Goodwill Industries or something like that. And I go in there, and this was creepy. There was a cold, dark, huge warehouse with a big ceiling with low lighting, and it was packed full of American people, mostly younger people, who were suffering with Down syndrome and other developmental disabilities, doing assembly work in some really, really unsatisfactory conditions. And that was not only something that was pretty much the only thing that was available, I wasn't even qualified to do that. Because the way they defined mental illness was a subcategory that they called intellectual disabilities or developmental things or whatever, and I ran into that even this last year, where they say we support people with disabilities, all functional levels and all this kind of, and you find out that that's not true. So what I find it's interesting that most of these are run by left-wing progressive type liberal mentalities. And I have found that those are people who have made things very difficult for me. And especially when it comes to the fact that for them to empower me means they have to give me power in order to enable me to do my work that I'm skilled and qualified and experienced to do. On the other hand, when I talk to right-wing people, there is a mentality of handouts. And I've heard this thing from even retired people that get government support saying, oh, they just want to give stuff away for free. They want to give away food and healthcare and all these horrible things that people should work for. And giving away free money to people that need to work. And I thought, well, great. Give me a job, please. Give me a job of something that's not going to kill me, like I was doing 15 years ago. And if you're going to, it'd be really funny if you were to allow me and enable me to get a career in something that I can contribute. Like, I can tune your piano. I'll do it for free. Just let me work, please. And then I get a lot of hostility towards the high functioning, especially the older generation of folks who look at me and they just assume that I don't want to work, no matter how much I talk about it, no matter how many efforts I try to get back to work. I simply can't. Of course, unless I end up getting some type of situation where I'm going to be paid the same or less than what I'm getting from the government, which would be silly. Or if I was going to be in another hostile environment where I was going to be weakened. And when you're in factories and warehouses and you suffer with cognitive disorders, panic attacks, when you suffer from anxiety disorders and depression, and of course that even starts manifesting as physical sickness and stuff like that, you can't expect these factory workers to carry you when you fall. I've gotten bullied in so many factories and warehouses everywhere I worked, and when I would get injured, that was even worse because they would blame me for that. When I would get physically injured, I would lose jobs because I would get hurt. No rehab. I'm talking fired. Oh, you hurt yourself? We don't want you here. Instead of saying, okay, maybe this guy should be getting a different kind of job. And then I get pressure as if there's some kind of moral obligation for me to give up my monthly support, which if I had a moral conviction against getting money from the government, that might be something I could do. It's just that would be stupid. And I want to prove a point that I would like to actually have an opportunity first to do what they consider substantial gainful employment for a period of time. And I even signed up for a program like this as well. And then once I actually get a job, then I can choose to release myself from getting governmental support. And anybody with enough common sense would do that unless they have some kind of religious moral code that gets them to want to be poor for a long period of time. And I'm sure there are people that are like that. So anyways, Mr. Brainweb says, you can avoid impeachment with one of your funny songs. Yes, that music proves that you have perspective on madness, and so you can't be truly mad. Yes, I can say, in order to stay on disability and get disability support and vocational support, I will sing you one of my songs to prove how fucking crazy that I am. In fact, I might even do one of these right now. And it says, but the right don't care at all about the misfortunate. They say it's your fault. I've gotten that before, yes. And that's, yes. So, and then Jesus was a communist. Yeah, if you look at the second chapter of Acts, the community that he formed, and he spoke to them, and he ascended into heaven, and suddenly he came down in the form of the Holy Ghost, and they spoke with tongues and stuff. And then in that same chapter, it said they had all things in common. Yeah, one of the first communist systems was Christianity. It started by Christ himself. And I love it because most of the anti-commie stuff and the people that accuse people like me of being communist have a huge biblical influence, not realizing that communism comes from a New Testament example. Okay, so Mr. Brainweb says that people that bully people who are vulnerable and human are the sick ones. Well, yes, definitely. I could teach music online. Well, thank you. I've tried that. I've tried a lot of things. I've tried volunteering for free to teach music at a place called Ethos Music in North Portland, Oregon. And it turns out this was another hipster clique. And again, it was really weird to lose my recognition, to lose my job, and to lose my ability to even volunteer. So this is proving to me that this is not necessarily a matter of whether people want me to be employed or not. I'm not allowed to give. I am not allowed to contribute. When it comes to me approaching somebody and saying, this is what I do, and I will even show them what I do, my disability status and the fact that I'm alone with a cat in an RV that travels around the country and has really no friends or family and has nobody tooting my horn except one time this week, although it hasn't been fruitful yet. It's just that it has to do with the big stigma or the big bigotry that I have become aware of. Now, if I was a woman and somebody were to come up to me and say, well, hello, lady, can you tell me what's your age and how much do you weigh? Of course, that's really offensive. I don't mind saying I'm 47 years old, 220 pounds. That really doesn't have much of an effect on how people treat me. That doesn't, if if I'm 225 pounds, if I'm almost 50 years old, as a man in Western culture in most places around the world, that doesn't seem to affect my overall value in the minds of others and how I'm treated. What I'm realizing, and especially this happens to do with, for instance, there was a middle-aged guy, a man of color too, who was my next door neighbor at one of the RV parks that I was staying at here recently. And this is what I get from everybody, but because he was somebody who represented an underprivileged group, he was a full-time RV guy, and he was close to my age, I felt a kindred spirit to him, except for one thing. Every time I talk to him, he's talking about, oh, I'm working, I'm doing this, and this is my credential, this is my background. I mean, it's like, and then I was like, oh, okay, I would talk about his credentials, he would talk about his credentials, and then I would say, oh, I can relate because he would talk about his credentials, and it was, so this is the conversations I typically have, and it's guys, typically folks who had been recognized or who already have way too much recognition is they talk about themselves, I talk about them, then I talk about me, and then they talk about them. They refuse to acknowledge anything that I have as far as really even reality, just what I do during the day. I am so invisible to people that, especially when it comes to men, it is very similar to the whole social taboo of why you don't come up to most women and ask her age and her weight. Because in our society, no matter what we try to do with gender equality, you have to recognize the fact that women still feel like they are objects, and I think that that is a reason why it is so difficult to talk about age and weight, because those are attributes that devalue a woman in the eyes of men. Now, there are men that like older women, and there are men that like fatter women. Most of the time, especially when you're dealing with public figures and professionals and stuff like that, they want a young and slender woman. At the same time, they want a man who is recognized and powerful. So, is there men's rights here going on? Am I like having a flashback to 1990 during the men's movement and a bunch of sensitive new age guys trying to rekindle the fire in their belly? Not exactly. I'm just trying to observe the fact that my value as a human being, although people, they tend to try to say that everybody matters and they all have value and all this kind of stuff like that. Really, though, I can look back to when I was young and stupid and recognized, I was treated entirely differently. I'm talking older people would ask me for advice about musical instrument maintenance, about music education, about composing and arranging and producing. And not only that, I've gotten 3 times better since then, and I'm invisible now. So I might as well be a fat old lady picking up young guys at a bar, and coming up to hot, young, successful men and say, hi, I'm a grandmother. I've got 12 grandkids. I'm 350 pounds and I'm 61 years old. You want to fuck? That's what it feels like to me. And it's even worse than that, because occasionally there will be a young man that says, ooh, grandma, yeah, let's fuck. But for me, when it comes to doing business, and this might change, because I've had some open doors here that have crept open just a tad, but still there hasn't been anything completed yet, but it's still in the works. But I'm still doubtful, because there are times when I'm like, oh my God, somebody's willing to do business with me. And then the fear sets in, is, oh my God, what kind of a man is fake Zappa? Who am I really dealing with? And I start to say, okay, now me, I'm talking about a successful, powerful person would say, hey, I'm looking at my calendar, I'm looking at my to-do list, I'm looking at my agenda, and fake Zappa should be at the bottom of that list. And I'm so busy that I'm never going to get to fake Zappa, no matter how much I want to or need to, or no matter what his needs, or matter even when it comes to social justice issues, even when it comes to civil rights issues about the disabled. I'm at the bottom of the list. I'm in the back of the line. People want me to succeed. They just can't allow me to because of the kind of system that they're involved in. Okay, so Mr. Brainweb, thank you for listening to me here. I will get to your questions. Of course, the Bible sounds exactly like Mark's, each according to his abilities, to each according to his means. I love Europeans. I tell you, man, they know everything about everything. And he said, so sorry. That stigma is terrible. You don't deserve that. You are so right and a victim of immature culture. We are not enlightened enough to be more caring people in your, I don't know that word. Is that some Irish word? Okay. Actuation. I got to look that one. I think I've heard that one before, but I'm not as smart as you. Zappa. I can see a real human soul there. Okay. Well, that's good. Which is why I follow you. And I would not follow some crazy dude. You seem like great company. Oh, situation. Oh, it was a typo. No, you could have totally fucked with me and say, oh, yes. No, there was a very influential Irishman that I used to hang out with for about 10 years. I was asked to be involved in a gay choir. And as somebody who had a background in vocal arrangements and composition, even in high school, and as somebody who's a conversion therapy survivor, a mental health activist, and somebody who has quite a story and an example, I just assumed that the gay community would want me to be featured as a composer and a collaborator with this big gay men's choir. Well, I found it interesting that after talking for hours, and I'm glad, because as much as this, and I'm not ragging on Irishmen, I'm just saying that I've talked to people from all over the world, and it always comes to this one thing, or two things, really, is people are scared of me and they're scared for me. Well, it turns out he was scared for me. He wasn't necessarily scared that I was going to get more power and influence than these people were, although there might have been that. But he really wanted to help me, and he talked to me for literally hours, and finally he gave me the truth. I mean, it was not a good truth, but at least when it came to all the Americans that I was talking to, it was finally an Irishman that gave me the truth of why he was unwilling to talk to the gay men's chorus, even though they had performed one of his compositions, and this guy had no background in he actually just, I think he sang the melody to somebody and had it transcribed. This guy was not even a composer. And so what he was a powerful, influential figure. And he would not advocate for me. He wouldn't even talk to the director. And of course, there's no way they were going to talk to me unless I was a member of their choir. And why should I just sit there and disappear in a mass of a bunch of old queers that, what's 50 to 100 people or something like that, when I have way more to contribute, not just with my story, but with my ability to compose music. So that was about 4 years ago. And I remember him sitting in my kitchen down with me, talking for literally an hour. And he finally told me, he said, with your illness, I'm afraid that if you get that much recognition, that it's going to hurt you. Well, I would like to be the one to decide what's going to hurt me and what's not. However, it was really good that I finally got an honest answer. And I've noticed that with some of the Europeans I've tried to do business with. However, a couple of years ago, I did end up in trying to do business with folks in the United Kingdom who ended up doing the passive aggressive thing to me, which I thought was unusual. So, trying to get vocational support, trying to get even just mental health care as somebody who is unrecognized, I find that I have to have support in order to get support. I find that I have to have a support system of people who can actually recognize that I'm suffering in order to get me in the door of a place that's actually going to get me help, which is very much like getting a job and getting any kind of, well, stuff when it comes to being an entertainer. Is that in order to get power, you have to have it already, which is why the folks that get a lot of attention get more attention and stuff like that. Unfortunately, we're giving President Trump so much attention with this whole fiasco. And that's why I have it in the background, because these guys are going on and on about, like, okay, he's gone. Just face it, he's gone. Us left-wing people won. We don't need this anymore. Why don't we spend our time trying to get jobs for those who are suffering instead of wasting all this time and resources and energy just because we hate somebody that much? This portion is sponsored by Coke Zero. This, as opposed to Diet Coke, which our beloved President Trump apparently drank about a case of that stuff a day. This was designed and marketed with men in mind. It's so funny because it's got lots of black. Have you noticed that when like dude wipes, you go to the grocery store or whatever, and you go to the toilet paper aisle, and they got those moist butt wipes? Well, now they've got ones that are packaged in black, and they call them dude wipes. Oh, you gotta love it. I just find this stuff so funny when it comes to how much we try to strive for gender equality, and we don't have it. And I think it's going to be a long time before we actually have something that resembles gender equality. So anyways, I'm going to log off here, and I really appreciate those who are watching, and I will keep you updated on my impeachment, because really what impeachment is trying to disempower somebody. Now, I have been disempowered for the last 15 years or more of my life, and I've seen the efforts that people try to make. They go out of their way to make sure that I'm not heard and I'm not seen and that I'm kept invisible, like a lot of mentally ill people. So in a way, being a fake president and going through this fake impeachment is kind of synonymous with my life. So anyways, Brian Webb, it would be funny if you were to decide to not keep me a secret, and if I got emails and calls and messages from people in Ireland saying, let's do an article about Jason T. Ingram and about how the American people have treated him, and not only that, how the country of the United Kingdom, England, Britain has treated me, which is very interesting because I have done business with England, Britain, whatever you want to call it, and I've associated with folks there for over 4 years. and nothing significant has happened, even though there are some powerful people who know of me everywhere from entertainment to mental health to regional music stuff and public relations as far down as London. And there were even people in Devon who were ready to do a public relations package that was really, as far as I'm concerned, insignificant and very questionable. And so that was the only thing that was available. So Europeans are fascinated with not only Americans, but what the right wing does. The Queen of England does not know me, but I have known people who have met the Queen. They should call her and say, hello, Your Highness, Your Majesty. I want to tell you about fake Zappa. Oh, yes. Is Frank still alive? No, not Frank. There's a guy who pretends to be him who's totally crazy. And I think it would be great to perform for the Queen. In fact, I would sing the Sex Pistols, God Save the Queen and the Fascist Regime. So, if you could do me a favor, if you could give the Queen a call, or maybe shoot for somebody a little less powerful, and to say, there's a lot of crazy people that get hurt. Why don't we listen to this guy? Thank you, Brian Webb. And golly, it must be late over there. It's 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I guess it's about 9 o'clock there, I think, as far as I can remember. It's hard to do that. Okay. You are a great mental health activist. I can't believe they have not made you a spokesperson. Well, they used to. 9 p.m. Okay. Alrighty. Well, I can't say top of the morning to you then. Top of the evening, or maybe you say bottom of the evening over there. Now look at this. I'm still in my pajamas. Now, I am not a Eurocentric person, but I do wear these nightshirts. And it looks like I walk around with a flannel plaid dress, which I think is funny. And I'm surprised nobody's clobbered me for looking like a trans woman or something. But one of the things I like about Europeans is that men can wear something that's not going to keep their balls bunched up in some kind of pants or underpants all night. Liberty for men and nightshirts is the first step when it comes to liberation of not only the male organs, but the male gender. Okay, so I'm going to meet you someday. I travel around the USA. A lot of camping. Very cool. Oh my God, you've been to Slab City? Okay, well, hey, make sure to email me at therealfakezappa@gmail.com, or you can go to fakezappa.com, and there is a, let's see here, what's it called? There's a contact page on there. I think this is it. I think that's the website, the web page. And maybe I'll make it, I'm hoping to make it east soon, but I had to spend another week out here because of health issues. I got into something that made some of my muscles sore, and I don't know what it was. So hopefully I'll get better soon. I think it's stress related. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you've been to my website. And let's see here. Travel around the USA, a lot of camping, been to Slab City several times. Several. That's more than I have. I've been there twice. In fact, it was last February. I'd love to meet you. It'd be the best night of conversation. And if you're a queer like me, maybe more. All right. I am in my pajamas too. And I am a professor of psychology working from home during the lockdown and lecturing online. I hope that doesn't make you mad. Actually, I've had some interesting run-ins with professors lately. So it'd be really interesting to meet a professor who will actually recognize I might have a few cents to contribute to the world of mental health and entertainment. So anyways, shoot me an email and let me know next time you might come to the Americanas. And oh, mad like crazy. That's right, because that's a United Kingdom talk for crazy. Have you gone mad? All right. So we all wear our pajamas as much as we can, unless we are an anal. Nice. Yes. And I think you don't mean buggery by that. So, anyways, this is one I ordered from King Size, and it has been. Let's see here. Look at this. That's quite a tear right there. But I don't want to open it up too much because I'm going to get X-rated here. But this is quite the. I must really toss and turn all night in these things. So, anyways, I'm going to get off of here, and maybe I will make a late lunch, and I'm going to try to turn on this. Oh my God, they're still talking. It's been fucking hours of this. Trump is such a bad guy. Yes, duh. Trump is the insurrection. And it's like, yes, he has, or maybe he hasn't. Just please help me. Help people like me. Can you do that? Just ignore this guy. He's gotten too much of attention as it is already. Just let him hang out in Mar-a-Lago and fuck his hot wife and sit under palm trees and drink martinis, because that's what he's good at.
With only 1 week to go in his term, the majority is asking us to consider a resolution impeaching President Trump. And they do so knowing full well that even if the House passes the resolution, the Senate will not be able to begin considering these charges until after President Trump's term ends. I can think of no action.
I live in the funniest country in the world. Okay, so I got to tuck this guy into bed here. He's in his Irish home, and says here, don't break the YouTube rules too much. Oh, that's right, because this is considered copywritten material. I'm surprised they haven't censored me as much as they possibly could, because they censor so many other people. And I don't have bagpipes, but I did almost buy a chanter once back in 2000. $65 when I lived in a trailer in Alaska. I mean, I didn't, but I'd like to get a bagpipe chanter one of these days, or the Uilleann pipes. That would be really cool. Maybe bagpipes, but the Uilleann or the Uilleann pipes, however you say it, I would rather play that than the bagpipe. All right, so one more thing from Mr. Brian Webb in Ireland. Uilleann. Oh, Uilleann pipes. Okay. Says, love the entertainment. Thanks. I hope you escape impeachment, because I want to run for. You want me to run for office again? Such an important impeachment. Not. Yes, it is. Epic stupidity and hostility, and liberals like me are saying unity, and then hostility. I think I don't think we can have unity unless we actually want to say nice things about each other. And I love right-wing people, man. They're just wonderful people. I hang out with them almost every day. And so hopefully we will undermine the hostility. And if you really want to look at something funny, go to my personal Facebook page and look at the stuff I post about undermining hostility and see how people respond to that. 140 comments of fuck that, fuck you, fascist, and you're a Nazi, you're a Nazi, you're a Nazi. And okay, maybe we all are. Alrighty. So, Ilian, but spelled Olean, means island because they're from a small island off the west coast. Look at my Facebook page. Yes, I'll put that down here. That's my personal Facebook page right there. And probably have some mutual friends there because I do connect with a lot of people in Europe. It's just that they have, and they still see me as a hobbyist. So I'm trying to transcend going from hobbyist to professional in the eyes of people. And that's not easy. Not easy to do that. So anyways, oh, hey, put it in the description here. Thank you, popular mom, my pot. I'm glad that you came in too. Oh, you know, I didn't realize that popular mom, my pot. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I didn't even notice because your icons look similar. But I'm going to have to get out right now because I'm really tired and I'm just still exhausted. I've had over a week of trying to recover from a lot of stress. And now I'm being impeached. So that's no fun. So anyways, fake Zappa loves you. Remember to keep me a secret because apparently that's what everybody's supposed to do. And you're not supposed to talk about me to powerful people unless you dare. And to see what happens. Because when you get somebody who is at the bottom of the social pecking order and you try to give that person exposure, it's going to fuck with your life. So that's why I said that people are not only afraid of me, they're afraid for me. They're afraid that success is going to kill me, but they're also afraid to take a risk on trying to empower somebody who might make them look bad or who might give me too much attention and them less. And those are the reasons, some of the reasons that I found. And I'll give you one more tidbit if I hadn't explained this too. When it comes to disabled people, the disabled people that get help have recognized disabilities, whether it's apparent or whether they get a lot of support. And the other thing is disabled people are used as tokens, like people of color are used as tokens to be a mascot, to be owned, and to make people look good. And I don't have either one of those characteristics. So that's one of the challenges that I have as a disabled activist in order to be seen. Because, and I can't remember this quote, so somebody might be able to help me with this, is that if you're a leader and nobody's following you, then you're just taking a walk. So that reminds me, I'm going to go take a walk. So, one more thing here. Popular Mom My Pot says, I guess I won't talk to you since I guess I won't talk about you since I don't want to be brought to the guillotine, or however it's spelled. Your spelling is better than mine. But yes, so far there's only been 16 people over the last couple of weeks that have been beheaded on my account, and I will make sure that you keep your head on, and if not, I will personally sew it back on. So thank you for watching, and I hope that all of you stay clear of the guillotines, and that you have the rest of your February be blessed with sex and all kinds of fun things that'll make your life worth living. Hey, thanks, good luck, and stay well. I will try. Hopefully I'll recover soon. Woohoo!